Hey, you just made a custom character in Blender and want to use it inside of Unreal Engine? Well, in this video I'll be showing you my workflow to rig your character, use inverse kinematics on him, animate it, export it to Unreal Engine, how you can modify it down the line, and finally how you can animate accessories attached to it. First, we need to make sure that our object origin is at the world origin. To do this, you can select your object, press Ctrl A, and apply all transforms. Now you can press Shift A to add an armature. We are going to display the bones in front. To do this, you can go into this tab and select in front. Back with the bones, you can go in Edit mode. And the first bone we're gonna do is gonna be called the root bone, and this is because Unreal actually need a bone named root. Then we can extrude from it, press Z to go up. We're gonna want this one to not be attached to our root, so we can detach it by going into the bone property and selecting connected, setting it to false, then G, Z, move it up. We're gonna want to call this one spine 1. I think I made a mistake. Before I was supposed to name this one roots. Up. Then we can just keep on extruding to get all the spine. Okay, so once this is done, we're gonna want to do the arms. And to do that, we can just pick the last spine bone, press extrude again, and like we did before, we want him to not be connected to the spine. And after disconnecting it, we're gonna call it upper arm. And something that's really important is that we want it to be called left at the end, exactly like that. And this is gonna tell Blender that we want this bone to be symmetrized on the other side. Okay, after doing the arm, we want to do the exact same thing for the legs. So extrude again, we want to make sure it's not connected, and G to move. Once this is done, you can select all of your bones and right click, symmetrize. And if you put left at the end of each of them, you should have the exact same thing on the right, with right at the end. Now we can start weight painting. Weight painting is the way of telling our mesh, the daemon, is gonna be affected by the bones of our armature. To do this, we need to select both our mesh and the armature, press Ctrl P, and do with automatic weights. So because our model is relatively simple, we can just go with automatic weights, but you might want to do empty groups and weight paint yourself. I'm gonna show how we can still modify the weight paints after using automatic weight. You can select your mesh, go into weight paint, and if you go down to the data tab, you can see all the mesh was painted. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into back to object mode and into pose mode to see how things look. And you can see there are a few issues, like the eyes not being properly attached to the head, or the arm moving a bit too much the body of our daemon. So we're gonna fix that. First, the head. So if I go back to weight paint, so if I select my mesh, go back to weight paint. If I go to the head, I can see that actually the eyes are not properly painted. So before I do anything, make sure you activate the symmetry. This will make it a lot easier. So I can paint the eyes in and maybe even the front of the head more. And if I just do that, it's actually not gonna work still. It's still gonna move. And the reason for that is that I also need to modify this white paint for the spine tree. because this one is also affecting up there. So I want to do the opposite. I want to select the subtract and remove the extra weight paint coming from this. And now if I go back to my armature, it's actually gonna look like the way I want it to look. Now let's fix the arm too. They're moving a bit too much for my liking. So what you can do is select your mesh again, go to weight paints, and we're gonna go to the upper arm. Yep. Subtract again, and I'm just gonna remove some of that weight paint. You also need to add it back, so I'm gonna select my spine tree, and this time we're gonna add. Now if I go back to my armature, you can see the arm movement is a little bit better. It's still not perfect, but obviously you could spend more time to make it look as good as you wish. Now let's move on to inverse kinematic. Inverse kinematics are a good way to accelerate your animating workflow. We can start by adding a new bone on the knee. So you need to be in edit mode, then select the knee, extrude, and Y to move in the Y direction. Back in the bone tab, we want to call this one key pull leg left. There are a few settings that we're going to want to check, so I'm going to select it. First up, I don't want him to have any parents. And the other thing I want to change is the deform. I want this bone to deform my bones, but not actually the demon, so we want to uncheck that. But then we can take it, do G and Y. This bone is basically gonna tell the IK system in which direction we want the leg to bend and to move. Then we can select the feet and do the exact same thing. So extrude, disconnect it. Same, you don't want it to deform. Remove its parent, and for the name, this one is going to be the IK target leg left. We can go inside of the pose mode, and as you go into pose mode, you can see you have now a bone constraint tab, and with the lower leg selected, we're going to add a new IK inverse kinematic constraint. So for the target, we're going to select our armature, set the bone to the target. Same thing for the pole, we select the armature, select the pole we created. But you want to set the chain length to 2 and the pole angle to 90 degrees. Now you can see that if I move the root bone, the foot is gonna stay in place, but there is a problem, it's not gonna keep its rotation. So to do that, the first thing we're gonna do is tell that bone that we no longer want to take the rotation from its parent, and instead we're gonna add a constraint to it, copy rotation. We are gonna select our armature, then our IK target, and for both of those parameters it should be set to local space. Once this is done, you can select your target IK, go into local transform rotation, and if you try to rotate in Z, you see it's not gonna work properly. Same thing if you rotate in X. Oh no, it works in X, but if I rotate in Y, it doesn't work either. So to fix that, it's really simple. You just go back to your constraints, and under the invert setting, you select Y and Z, The last thing we need to do is to symmetrize those constraints that we just created. And to do that, you can go back to edit mode, select your leg, right click, and symmetrize again. And now you can see that if I take my demon, he can move around and his feet stay where they're supposed to be. And I can move the feet around, rotate them. And this is going to be really practical for the next step. So in order to animate your character, you're going to want to select its armature and then into the animation tab, select action editor, and here we're going to be able to create all of our animation. During this tutorial, we're going to make a basic idle and a walking animation. So let's start with the idle. when you create a new animation, make sure that you toggle on this little shield so that it actually saves. If you don't do that, Blender is not gonna save your work. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna select my character, rotate his arm, making in a more resting, resting pose. So a really cool tool that you can use is the Auto IK. So it's not perfect, but it can help. If you wanted to, you could also do an IK system like the one we did for the legs, but for the hands. But I find that the Auto IK tool in Blender is work well enough. Once you made your first pose, you can select all by pressing A and then press Y to keyframe that pose. Then we're gonna make another pose. And then again, press A to select all and Y to keyframe. Okay, so once this is done, for the idle this should be enough. I'm gonna select, with all the bones selected, I'm gonna select the first keyframe that we did, copy it, paste it, and now I'm just gonna make it so that our animation lasts 59 frames. So I'm gonna do the same here. The reason why you want 59 and 60 is because if you stop the animation at 60, it would play this exact frame twice, once here and once here. So for a smoother transition, it's better to stop the animation one frame before the last keyframe. There you go, you have a basic idle. So now we're gonna make walking animation. So to do that, we can create a new action by clicking here. Let's call it walking or walk, whatever you want. Make sure to use the little save shield. I'm gonna make a new keyframe, delete the other one, and then for the walking animation, what you want is to base yourself on some source images, so like this one. I will leave the link in the description. And we just want to remake this pose, each of these poses. Also, an important thing to know is when you want to move things like the spine, you want to disable Auto IK and only enable it when you move something like the end. Because if I try to move the root while Auto IK is on, it's gonna do some weird stuff. So you want to disable it and move your character down a little bit. Also, as you can see, his torso is a bit tilted, so we can take this bone, press rotate, and then because I'm in local space, I can press Y. Okay, so once you got your first pose, you can select all of your bones, press A to select all, Y to keyframe, and then don't forget to move the little cursor before you do the next one. So I just made a bit of a mistake before, so I'm just gonna fix it. Okay, and then finally, let's move on to the last frame. So I'll make it 5 frames after this one. So now that you got all of your frame, we've got half of the animation. And you don't actually need to do the same thing in the other way, so you can only see we only have one feet going forward. you just need to select all your bones, then down there all your animation, press Ctrl C, and then Ctrl Shift V, and it's gonna copy it but in the opposite direction. So now if I go through it, you can see it's gonna play nicely together. Then finally, at the end of it, we want to copy the first keyframe, put it at the end, and then the last thing to do is just to send the last frame. So instead of being 59, it should be 39. And same down here. And now if we press play, we can see we have a pretty basic walking animation. So it's not perfect. You should probably try to move things around a bit. Like if I look it on the side, I can see that this part is taking a bit too long. So maybe we could try to shorten it by a frame. Do the same thing here. And does it look better this way? It looks a bit better, but you can play around with where you put your keyframes and change them a little bit. This will work for now, but obviously you can spend more time following this tutorial. Finally, we can move on to the export to Unreal. So to do that, you're gonna want to select both your character and its armature, then go into File, Export, GLTF, and there's a few parameters that you need to change. The first one is to include only the selected objects, and then the other one that you want is under Data, then Armature, and this one, Export Deformation Bones Only. This will make it so our eye key target are not exported with our armature. I'll call it Character, Export GLTF. And now if I go to Unreal Engine, if I import my character, so if I import my GLB file, you'll see I have quite a lot of parameters, so you should let them as their default values. So you should import everything for the first time, make sure you have the textures, and once you import it, you'll see that Unreal will have automatically created material for a demon, but you might actually not want that. So for instance, I like to make my own material for this because I like to have the pixelated style. So what you could do is simply delete this material, then create a new one, and go inside of your character, go into asset detail, and there you can change the material to be whatever you want. Okay, so now if I drop him into the world, you can see that he's working pretty great. I can drop this one too if I want, and I have my poses and my idle animation and the walk animation, and if I want I can also make it a custom blueprint for him, just to show you how it would look. And now you can see I have my demon moving in the game. Okay, but what if you need to make some modification in Blender? Let's go back to Blender and select the armature, go to animation, and select our idle. Let's say you wanted to modify this animation, so maybe actually we're gonna define the walk. Maybe we want him to look sideways all the time, so let's just do that. Let's select all of them, delete the keyframes, and only keep a keyframe where it's looking on the side. E to, okay, and now the animation looks like this. And let's also make a new animation, why not? So let's take the idle and let's duplicate it. Let's call it idle 2. Make sure to keep that or else it's not gonna be saved. And we'll just make him crouch maybe, why not? Okay, so A, Y. If I go back to my layout, I can once again select both, do File, Export, GLTF, use the same parameter as before, I'm gonna call it the same name, and export. Now back in Unreal, what you want to do is go wherever you imported the first time, so for me it was here, do new, import the same character. This time I'm just not gonna re-import the textures. Click on import, do apply to all, yes. And now you can see that if I hit play, my head is gonna be looking on the left if I walk forward. And also, I should also have the new animation that we just created, idle 2. And if I hit play, you can see he's doing his squats. So finally, let's say that you have an animated object that you want to animate in pair with your character, like this shotgun for instance. It's got one bone that can control the entire object and another that can move this little handle to recharge the shotgun. The way I usually do it is I go back to object mode, I select my armature. What I do is that I use a constraint, so I do a copy transform with the target being my demon and the bone being the end. And now what I will do is that I'll go to pose mode, select my shotgun, and from here I'm gonna use rotate Z and basically just move it in its local space to feed the demon. So I'm gonna put it kind of on his end, like right here. This is just an example, it's not gonna be perfect. Let's make a quick animation on the demon that recharge the shotgun. Okay, so now you can see I have a basic reload animation. It looks really bad, but it's just to show you how you could do it. So basically, after doing your animation in the demon, you want to go back to the layout. Now this time you want to select your object's armature and then go back to animation, and you'll see you don't have the animation here anymore. So you're gonna create a new one. What I usually do is start by giving it the name of the objects. Same, you want to save it, and what we're gonna do is that at the keyframe right here, we're gonna press, at the beginning we're gonna do Y to keyframe. Then right before we start charging, we're gonna do Y again, and then when it reaches this pose, we're gonna take just this G, Y, move it wherever it should be, Y again, and then we can move it back. And now if I look at the result, it should look something like this. So both animations are playing together. And what you might also want to do is to create a default pose for the shotgun. So I'm just gonna create a new one, call it shotgun object default. So you want to make sure to save it. Up. And I'm just gonna keep the first frame. And yeah, I need to take both. I'm gonna keep the first frame. And yeah, this should be great. I forgot also to add a range to the reload animation, so I'm gonna do just that. This one was ended at 30, so the shotgun object reload should end at 32. And there we go. Now if I go back to layout again, so you select both the shotgun and its armature. You need to hide the modifier. So back on the armature, you need to hide this, then you select both, then you do File, Export, OBJ, GLTF, sorry, and we're gonna call this one Shotgun. And you want to use the same preset as before, Export GLTF. And also, because we created another animation to our character, we're gonna export him again, File, Export, GLTF, character. Yep, there we go. Let's go to Unreal. Let's import our daemon again. So import character, open. Yep. Apply to all. And what I'm gonna do is inside of content, I'm gonna create a new folder for the weapon. Import our shotgun. Exactly the same. This time I'm also gonna import the texture. And now if we go back in our blueprints, I can play around with it. I'm actually gonna set it to use animation asset just to show that it works. Use the reload. I'm gonna attach a new mesh, a new skeletal mesh. Up is animation blueprint, so this one is gonna be the shotgun. It's gonna be attached to what you want to do is inside of your character, the one that you imported, you're gonna want to go to the skeleton, and under the end we're gonna create sockets. I'm gonna just call, well, we can just leave it as that, and write sockets. Save. And now back into our blueprints. I'm gonna set this to unwrite sockets. And the last thing that we need to do is to also use an animation on our skeletal mesh. So use animation asset. How you would probably do it in your game is by using an anim montage and launching both of them at the same time. But yeah, there you go. This is my workflow, and I hope you liked it. Hey, so if you like this video, subscribe and let me know in the comments what you thought. I'm currently working on a game called Wake Up Kids, and some devlogs and other tutorials like this one are coming. So if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe.